Welcome to the Cognitive Athlete Podcast. I'm Clint Rahe, high performance coach, speaker, and author of The Cognitive Athlete. This podcast is about helping leaders, thinkers, and doers perform at their best without burning out. And today, this is our very first episode, and I want to share with you why I wrote the book and why I think this message matters so much right now. So let's dive in. My journey into all of this work began in the Royal Air Force many moons ago. I started out as a physical training instructor that involved preparing fast jet pilots and personnel for operations in the Middle East. Now, as you know, everything in the military is not left to chance. We plan, we train, and this was no exception. We trained in cycles, just like elite athletes. It's called pre-deployment training, and it followed a 12-week cycle. That cycle contained conditioning, transition, performance, and recovery, the same as elite athletes. Now, in the conditioning phase, it was about 4 weeks. We focused on fitness, lower intensity runs and training to build some really solid foundations, because we made a link between fitness and we call it operational excellence, but how people operate on the ground. The higher the fitness level, the better they performed. In the next phase, which was transition, this was combining fitness training with role-specific preparation. So for pilots, as an example, that meant intensive combat-ready training, simulated missions, and large-scale exercises. The scenarios gave them a bit of a taste of the chaos of combat before the real thing. The aim was to get them emotionally prepared to make sure that their first mission wasn't as overwhelming. Every mission included extensive planning, briefing, flying, and then debriefing. It was a continuous learning cycle. For the RAF regiment, it was more about force protection, so securing airfields, navigation, airfield damage repair, and live firing exercises, anything to keep the bases safe under threat. For all general personnel, it was about force protection, it was about first aid and CBRN training. Now, this is a mouthful, bear with me. It stands for chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear preparedness. I know, it was a mouthful. Everyone had to be combat ready no matter their role. And alongside all of that, we ran adventure training. So things like rock climbing, mountaineering, canoeing, and high ropes, as an example. These weren't just fun activities. They built teamwork, communication, problem solving, and resilience under pressure in a controlled environment. The next was the performance phase. Now, this was the deployment itself, and for some it could be 4 months, for some 10 weeks, or even 6 months. This is where people had to continually perform at their peak. After that was the recovery phase, or decompression, which is on return. We actually ran the reverse of the transition phase, so we used adventure training as a medium for decompression, so people could take time out, rest, reset, and then reintegrate with their families and squadrons on their return. Now, that rhythm of condition, transition, perform, and recover kept people sharp, it kept them healthy, and it kept them sustainable at their performance. And things like annual leave, it wasn't optional, you had to take it. And with all of that, it worked really well. Now, fast forward about 10, 15 years, when I moved into the corporate world, and I found the opposite. There was no rhythm. And there was this unspoken expectation. It's pretty simple. We start in January, we go flat out until December, and then we repeat that for 40 years. No wonder burnout is everywhere. And I saw it, I experienced it for myself, and I hear the same story from my clients all the time. We need to do more with less. We're working so many hours. Work-life, what? There is no work-life balance. It just does not exist. And with COVID, more people working from home, this hasn't even helped anything, because without the commute, people are actually working longer hours, not shorter. And if you work in a global company, specifically in Australia, often we don't push back. when Europe or the US schedule late night meetings. So you can actually be logging in at 11 p.m. or 2 a.m. to get on a call and then expected to start work again at about 8 or 8:30 the next morning. And what is the reward for all of this? I'll tell you what it is. It's a holiday in Bali. Woohoo! However, have you ever found that you got sick and then you spend a whole week in bed after working your butt off all year, and then you have to go straight back to the grind? Now, there is a phenomenon called the letdown effect, which covers this exact thing, where we work all year and then as soon as we take a break or a holiday, we get sick. Like I said, we'll cover that in another episode. But really, that was my turning point. I thought, there's got to be a better way to live my corporate life. And that's what inspired writing the book, The Cognitive Athlete, because it's about bringing all of the principles that I've learned from sports science, neuroscience, and psychology into the way we work to help leaders and professionals perform at their best without burning out. My passion became bringing these lessons that I've learned from sport and the military into corporate life, because athletes and operators, we know something important. You can't perform at your best without recovery. And that's where the idea of the cognitive athlete comes in. A cognitive athlete is someone who uses mental conditioning and structured recovery to excel under pressure. I'll repeat that again because it's important. A cognitive athlete is someone who uses mental conditioning and structured recovery to excel under pressure. Now, we may not train our bodies like athletes, but we rely on our brains in much the same way. Whether you're a leader, whether you're a professional, whether you're a knowledge worker, we're athletes of the mind. So why don't we prepare, train and recover like athletes do? And here's the truth, burnout is on the rise. Some really interesting statistics from Deloitte found 42% of women and 30% of men report being burnt out. Another study by Gallup says 76% of employees feel burnt out at least some of the time, and burnout drives 40% of resignations. And guess what? The pace of work isn't slowing down. If anything, with the advent of AI, it's accelerating. And that means we need a better way to think, to decide, and to respond under pressure. And that starts with working with our natural rhythms, not working against them. With this podcast, I want to empower you to take action straight away. So as part of these podcasts, at the end, I want to leave you with a key takeaway or action step that you can just do, something that's really quick and easy. So here's the first one, something that you could do this week. So before your next major task, whether that's a presentation, a pitch, or just some deep work, I want you to block out 25 minutes. And in that 25 minutes, what I would like you to do is step away from all that shallow work. And you've probably heard that term before. Shallow work, things like emails, notifications, Teams messages, and just go for a walk, right? Or put some music on, or do something that energizes you. That's the most important thing. For me, it's about going for a run, or I go to the gym. For you, it might be going for a coffee, it might be doing some breath work, maybe some deep breaths, listening to music, or just switching off for a moment. There's some really great research about the benefits of walking in nature. So go away and do that. The point to all of this is you need to give your brain a break. Some great research by Microsoft, which I'll cover in another episode, that says that even a short burst of recovery matters. And just like athletes, our performance doesn't come from grinding harder. It comes from knowing our rhythms, knowing when to push and when to then recover and reset. Now, that brings us to the end. So that's the story behind the cognitive athlete and why I believe that we need to rethink how we work. We are athletes that use our brains instead of our bodies. So we need to train our brains the way that athletes train their bodies. In the next episode, we're going to explore exactly what it means to be a cognitive athlete and how you can start shifting your mindset from this week. If today resonated with you, hit follow, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and check out the website cognitiveathlete.com.au. There is a really great self-assessment tool in there in which you can find out at what stage you're at burnout. And remember, the book, The Cognitive Athlete for Thinkers, Leaders and Doers, is available now on the website. Click on that to pre-order and get your copy before it's in the shops. And remember, don't just sprint through marathons, train harder to get better results. See you in the next episode.